Welcome all to this webinar on working with MATLAB from Origin. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Ishwar Iyer, Product Manager at OriginLab. During the webinar, you can use the Q&A window to ask specific technical questions. I have my colleague Zheng Shao from Tech Support who has graciously joined, and he will help answer the questions. If any questions go unanswered, we know who typed it in, so we can always get back to you by email later. So don't worry, please type your questions. There is also a chat window if you have general comments, such as, say, I'm speaking too fast, you want me to slow down, I tend to speak fast. So please put comments in the chat window. Some notes about the webinar. We are recording this webinar, and we'll send you an email early next week. It's Friday, so it'll take maybe the first couple of days of next week to clean up the recording, put it up for download, and then you can view the recording. We will also give you this Origin project. I have put together a project. I'll tell you briefly what the outline is in a moment. We'll get the project too and all the data files that I'm using as well. So it'll be self-contained. You can then play with the files and also view the recording. On our website, if you are on a browser on a PC, on the right side, you will see a link saying register for a webinar. You could click that, or under support, there is a button training webinars. If you click that, you will get to our webinar page. So we are currently at 2 p.m. working with MATLAB. Later today, there is an introduction to laptop scripting at 4 p.m. by my colleague James Chen. Earlier today at 12 p.m., my colleague Chris Drozdowski had a webinar about connecting with web data. That will be available, the recording will be available as well early next week. And then coming up, July 10th, we have a webinar on user-defined fitting functions, a preview of Python improvements in upcoming 2021. I'll touch upon a bit of that towards the end of this webinar, and also one on accessing database. So feel free to register to these, okay? So today's agenda is about working with MATLAB from Origin. So the rough outline that I have here in the project is, first I'll cover importing MATLAB files, okay? So for importing, you do not need to have MATLAB installed on your PC. So you could be running MATLAB somewhere, collect your data, run your simulation, save it as a MAT file, then have that file shared to a PC where you have Origin running. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same PC, okay? We'll cover that. Then we'll move on to MATLAB Console, which is a tool inside Origin to communicate with MATLAB. In that case, both MATLAB and Origin need to be on the same PC, okay? Third, we'll look at connecting to Origin from MATLAB via code. Look at some M files on how to launch Origin, send some data into Origin, do some processing of that data, okay? We'll conduct a short poll during the webinar so that this way we have your attention, we can ask some questions. Your feedback is critically important for us to improve this area. We have a new version coming up later in October of this year. So we need to know what, if anything, needs to be improved. So please take the poll seriously and give us your feedback. And then at the end, I'll show some quick things about Origin 2021 and Python and how that can tie into also pushing your data from Origin and doing some advanced analysis, okay? So let's get started. First, it's about importing MATLAB files. I am using Origin version 2020B. That's our latest version, okay? This was released somewhat recently, okay, end of April. And as I mentioned before, 2021 will be released in October. I also have MATLAB running. I have the latest version of MATLAB R2020A. For the import, of course, I don't need MATLAB. I have just left it running, okay? Like I mentioned before, it doesn't have to be on the PC if you're just importing. So let's get started with import. So I have a blank worksheet here in Origin. If you look at our data menu in recent versions, We used to have the import from file menu. That's old. It's been there for a long while. And there are many different formats here, including MATLAB. Okay, MATLAB may not be visible, but you can turn it on. There is an add, remove, file types to turn on. Okay, but in the recent versions, we have implemented a data connector concept where you can connect to a file, not just import. The benefit of the data connector is that you can stay connected to the file. If the file changes, you can re-import the data easily. There are several benefits. I'll talk about it as we walk through. So for this demo, I'm going to use the data connector, not the old import. Also, the data connector has improved code. So we plan to make future improvements only to the data connector, not the old import. Okay. So I'm going to do connect to file MATLAB. Okay. And this will first open a file dialog. And I have a folder here with all the data, as I mentioned to you. We will share this with you. I'm going to pick this data file, analog data. Okay. And then the data connector browser opens. So depending on what type of file you're connecting to, if it is CSV, it's simple. It will just ask you something about header lines. If it is MATLAB or HDF or JSON, the data browser comes up, which shows you the structure of the file. Okay, so here I can see there are many EMG channels. There are some force 1, force 2, force 3 channel. Okay, moments and such. And at the end, there is a time channel, okay, a double precision array. Let me just double click and import the time only, okay. So I double clicked, it added that particular entry from the tree to this dialog at the bottom of this panel, and I click OK. So now you will see in the worksheet, let's take a look. You'll see on the left a panel, okay. This particular panel can be shrunk or expanded. Okay, it's a navigator panel for data connectors. All data connectors have this panel. So if you bring in an Excel file, for example, so in the navigator panel, it will show you the structure and it highlights the entry that says has been imported in bold. So the time column has come in. Okay. The next thing you'll notice that there is a green log here. If I click on the log, there are several options in the menu. One is data source. If I click that, it will show me the source. I can go here and change. There are features such as absolute path or relative path. So you could put a file in the same path as a project and share it with a colleague in a zip file. And so there will be no issue of absolute path. It will use the relative path from the project path. So these are all documented. You can look through those. And we have also had webinars on data connectors before. You can look at the recordings. Okay, let's go ahead and bring in some more data. So if I click on EMG, you will see all these channels. So I can click, then right click, and there are several options. Add and connect as a new sheet or add to active sheet. Let me choose add to active sheet. So all of those channels of data came in. I brought them into the same sheet because they all share the same time column. Okay. So you can see from this file, we pulled only two things, time and the EMG channels. Okay. Now let me make a plot. I can select the whole worksheet by clicking here. Then I go to the plot menu. And in the recent version, we introduced a new plot called browser plot. Let me just quickly show that. I choose that and choose color lines option. This plot is really nifty for multi-channel data. So this plot also has a panel on the left to show all the channels that I've selected. So I can sit here and then use my mouse cursor to browse through. Okay. I can also go to this menu and say select every fifth, for example. So it will plot them. I can go here and say use, let me see, stacked line by Y offset. So what will happen in this case is it will stack them so I can still see the variations in the different channels. I can, of course, go here and select all or select from the menu to see all of my data. I can randomly select the ones that I want to compare. So this is a very nice tool for multi-channel data exploration. There are more features to it. You can play with it. By the way, if you don't have the latest version, you can always get a free trial license that's fully functional. It has all the features that I'm showing you today. Okay, now with this graph and the data, let's save this project. Okay, so I'm going to go do a file, save as, save project as. Let me just give it a name, test. Okay, save. Okay, I'm going to clear out. I'm going to open that test project, and I wanted to show you something unique about data connectors. You'll see when I reopen the project, the worksheet is empty and the graph is also empty. And the data connector shows a yellow symbol. So what happens with data connectors is that if there is sufficient amount of data, there is a threshold in Origin, there's a system variable setting. Origin by default will clear all the data. There is a checkbox here, exclude imported when saving. The benefit of that is if you're working with a large mat file, you can do your processing, make the graph, save the project without the data. So your file will be much more compact, much smaller in size. Later, when you need it, you just open, fire it up, bring in the data, and you can continue your work. Provided, of course, the data remains in the same location. Okay, so it's your choice. You can turn it off if you don't want to. When you have this, by the way, you can have many books in a project and all of them could have data cleared. There is a button here, import all connected data. Or you can go to each log and individually import them, like click on the log and do import. There is also an auto import option. We don't recommend that because if you have many files connected in a project, that may cause issues. If you have a graph and the data is directly plotted, there will be an icon. You could click on that icon also to import. So there are several ways to bring back the data. Okay. All right. Let me go back to the previous project. Any questions so far? Please type your questions in the Q&A panel or the chat window. Okay. All right. So let me show you a few more variations of importing MATLAB files. So I'm going to go to the folder that has the data. Okay. And I'm going to take some other file and simply drag and drop. So here's a file I called foils, radiance, and spectral temperature. I'm going to simply drag it and drop it. When you drag and drop a file, by default, we import all the channels. Okay. So that's a quick way to bring in the data. This just happens to have some missing values. It's some data that a user shared with us, gave us permission to distribute it. Okay. So I can go back here. I can choose multiple files and drag and drop, and they'll all come in as individual books and all of them will be imported. Okay. So that's another way to quickly import, drag and drop. Okay. Let's look at one more file. I have a file with the images here. Okay. So you can bring in images into Origin. I can simply drag it and drop onto the gray space, or I can create a metrics window in Origin and drop it onto there. So let me just show that variation. Metrics window is the other container for data in Origin, workbooks and metrics books. And let me grab that file. It has images and drop. So that will bring all the images in. And in the recent version, we did a nifty thing. We have put the slider on top. So you can see here, there are many images. Okay. And using the slider, I can move around and I can look at them. Okay. So you could bring a stack of images in. And we are working on some nifty apps. You may know that we have been publishing apps for Origin. We are working on apps that will work on stacks of images, like drill through the image and find all the values at a given pixel, do profiling across the stack and such. So those would be available hopefully later this year. With the image, I can also apply a nice palette. So let me go put a topography palette here, and then I can move around here. So you notice this is one metrics book with one sheet, but a single sheet can have a stack of images. So there are many images here. Okay. Any questions so far? So a word of caution about the import, about connecting. Not all data formats from MATLAB can be imported in Origin. Okay. There are limitations. For instance, date time stamped data. In my case, when I showed you the first example, it was simple time value. It wasn't really date time stamp. Date time stamp wasn't working. We have fixed that in 2021. But you have complex structures and such, we wouldn't be able to import. The reason mainly being that we are not using MATLAB. We are trying to figure out the format of the file and trying to import, and MathWorks doesn't publish all those details. But this is where you come in. Please play with this data connector for MATLAB with your files and tell us what you want to improve. It's critical that we hear from you so we can continue improving it. By the way, you can also connect to web. So if there's a MATLAB file on the web, like somebody put up a file on the web somewhere, share data, you can also connect to web to import the data. Again, there are data connector webinars that you may want to look for in the recordings. Okay, so far, if I am going too fast, let me know. Please feel free to chat or type in the QA window. Okay, let's move on. I'm now going to connect between Origin and the running MATLAB. Okay, so for the rest of the webinar, I'm assuming the PC has both Origin and MATLAB. Okay, so here's my MATLAB running. It's empty. There is nothing in the workspace. Okay, let me go back to Origin and let me first connect. And the idea here is I have some raw data, noisy. I want to push that to MATLAB, do a Gaussian smooth available in MATLAB, and bring back the smoothed result. Okay, let's see how to do that. So there is a connectivity menu in recent versions. Under that, there is MATLAB Console, R Console, R Serve Console, Python. We are making significant improvements to Python in upcoming version, and also a mathematical link. So if you have any of these other products, check them out. Let's fire up the MATLAB console. When you do that, you get a message saying, do you want to connect to MATLAB session that's already running? If yes, click the copy command button, go to MATLAB and paste the command and run it. Let me do that and I'll explain to you why. Okay, let me copy the command. Then I go to MATLAB, to MATLAB's command window, okay, and paste and run it. What this does is this enables the current MATLAB to work as an automation server. That's necessary for client applications to talk to the application. They don't seem to turn that on by default. I do not know why. Perhaps there is a way to put this in some configuration file that when you launch Origin, it's automatically turned on. I don't know much about MATLAB, to be honest with you. So you could look that up. So if you're going to work with MATLAB and Origin consistently, you may want to see how you can make this command run when MATLAB is launched. If I go back here and click retry, now it connects. So let me make one thing clear. Only in version 2020B you can do this. In previous versions, there wasn't the way to do this. So in previous versions, what you need to do is do not launch MATLAB. First launch Origin, then start the console, and the console will in turn launch MATLAB in the background and be connected to it. Okay. So in 2020B, we made it more convenient. You may be working with MATLAB for several hours, then you want to fire up Origin and do some communication. So now it becomes easy. Okay. So now let's see how to take this noisy data, send it over to MATLAB and do some smoothing. I'll show it to you in two ways. First, I'll show it to you using the GUI. So there is import and export buttons. Okay. So I click the export button to send data from Origin to MATLAB. Okay, so I click export. It's showing me all the quantities that I have here, all the channels. So I'm going to send the column B. Okay, and I am going to change this name and call it Y1 in MATLAB. Okay, I'm going to send column B as Y1, and then I do export. And then I can close. If I come here and do who, you will see there is the variable Y1. Okay. Now let me smooth it in MATLAB. So the command for that, the Gaussian smooth, is Y2 equals, let me just copy that so I don't type anything wrong. Control C, come here, do Control V, okay, and run. Okay, sorry, I forgot the variable name. So I have to say y2 equals Control V. Okay, sorry about that. Let me remove that extra equal to. Okay, and execute. Remember, this is Origin's console window. This is not MATLAB. Okay, MATLAB's window. Okay, so now that's smooth the data. Now if I say who, you'll see y1 and y2. Okay, by the way, in this console window, it dumps all the results, whatever calculations I do. I do not know if there's a setting in MATLAB to turn it off. One of the problems with that is this will fill up the buffer for this window pretty quickly. So you may notice after a while you type a command, it wouldn't take it. Then you simply have to close the window and restart it so that the buffer is emptied. It's an annoying thing in Origin. We will look into fixing that in 2021. Okay, just so you are aware, suddenly if the typing of command stops, that means the buffer is full. Okay, all right. So now let me bring this back. So now I want to import the data, right? So I click on the import button, and then you can choose the variable that you want to import, that is y2. And I can import as matrix or import as worksheet. Let me import as worksheet. Unfortunately, that comes into another sheet, okay? And I'll show you how to do this better in a few moments. So let me take this data, Control C, the smooth data, and go paste it here into this column that's waiting. And you'll see the result in the graph that this is the smooth results from the MATLAB smoothing. Okay? So far, so good. I see some questions and I see all have been answered. Okay, my colleague is helping. Okay. I may not be able to keep up with the questions, I apologize. But if we don't answer any, we will go back and send you the email with the answers. So let me clear the result and show you another way to do this. If you are doing this day in and day out, you may not want to use the GUI because that's sluggish. So there are commands to do that, okay? So if you press F1 on this dialog, it will open the help menu for this MATLAB console, which is inside Origin. And there are a bunch of commands to grab a matrix and transfer either way, to take a workbook range and put it and get it. PWR is to send, PWC and so forth, okay? So there are many commands, you can look at those. I'm going to use a couple of them. So notice that I cleared the data, so the smooth result is not there. So now I can go issue these commands. Let me make the workbook active, okay? And I can say put worksheet range call to a variable called y1. I'm using the same variable, okay? So it'll just overwrite that. So take the column 2 from this worksheet and put it into MATLAB variable y1, okay? So there it goes. Then I can issue the same command I had before, y2 equals smooth, okay? To create Control C, go here, do Control V, and do the smoothing, okay? Smoothing is done. Now I can get worksheet range, okay? You see, this is what I meant. It's really annoying that the buffer gets full. So I have to kill it. I have to go again to connectivity and bring it back up. So it's to be honest, it's very awkward, okay? Okay, my WebEx stuff is blocking me. It's in the way. So let me go to connectivity and open MATLAB Console. Okay, the variables are still there. Okay, nothing is lost. So now with the worksheet active, I can say, let me see what was the command. I can say GWR get the range, okay, into column 3 from Y2. Okay, I need to make sure I have the worksheet active, and then I go here and issue this command. Okay, so that will bring the smooth data into the specified column. So these commands may be more helpful if you're working day in and day out to send some data, do some processing, bring it back to the exact same exact range that you want to put into. Okay. All right. Let's look at a 2D example now. Okay. So you can see how to take metrics data and send it over and smooth it. Okay. So I'm going to export the metrics now. I'm just going to use the import export buttons for now. Okay. So I'm going to export, and sorry, I have to have the metrics active. Okay. I'm going to export this and call this noisy data. Okay. And export and close. So if I go here and say who, you'll see there's a matrix now called noisy. Now I'm going to define a kernel to do a Gaussian, to do a convolution smoothing. Okay, this is now MATLAB command, of course. So I'm copying, pasting here. K equals a kernel size 5 by 5. Okay, if I type who, there is my K, and then I'm going to do the 2D smoothing, convolution smoothing available in MATLAB. By the way, I have the basic MATLAB. I don't have any toolboxes. Okay, so I'm just showing commands that I can, which are available in the basic MATLAB. So smooth. Okay, again, annoying. It dumps all the values. Really annoying. Who? See, I ran into that problem again. But let me just import, because I have the thing smoothed. So I can bring in the smooth result as an import as a matrix and close. So here comes the matrix with the smooth data. Let me turn on the image view in Origin. So I can go to view, image mode. So there is my smooth data. I can apply the same palette. So you can compare one to one. I had used the topography palette. So you see this is noisy data. That's with the convolution smoothing with the 5 by 5 kernel. So just to show you that, you can also transfer metrics data between MATLAB and Origin. Okay. Any questions? Let's see. All the questions have been answered by my colleagues. Wonderful. So thank you for being engaged and asking questions. Okay. Now let's move on to some examples of connecting to Origin from MATLAB code. Okay, you may or may not like the console. The console, I would say, is for very quick and dirty 1 or 2 transfers and do something quick. You may, of course, be writing a lot of MATLAB code. Then from MATLAB, how do you connect to Origin? And how do you push data and do things in Origin? So that's what we'll do for the rest of the session. Okay. All right. So let me go to this example of new Origin session, how to start a new Origin session. Okay, I have an M file already written, and I'm going to debug that so you can clearly see. Okay, so let me go open and find that file. I have it. We will be sharing these files with you, okay? So you will be able to play with them. So I have it all in C:temp, C temp. So we'll zip up this whole MATLAB webinar folder and give it to you, okay? New Origin session. Let me open that. It's open. So I'm going to put a breakpoint here, and then I'll walk through, okay? Let me put a breakpoint, set breakpoint, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to close Origin, and you will see in a moment why. I don't need to save this project. Origin is gone. It's just MATLAB running. Okay. So let's go through this code here. First, I'm making some data. Okay, just some sine and cosine waves. Okay. Let me go through those. Okay. So I'm going to step through. I'm going to first click run to start the debug. Okay, add path, fine. Step through, I make a variable x, make a variable y1, which is 10 times sine of x, y2, which is 50 times cosine of x, and I take that and convert to an array with 3 columns, the x, the y1, and the y2. Okay, so that's done. Now I have data. in my, sorry, I should have cleared the workspace here to make it less cluttered, but my data is here, okay, M data. You can see it's a 1/3 cell, okay? Now, the next statement is org equals ActiveX server origin.application. So what this line does, it's telling the operating system, MATLAB is telling the operating system, please launch origin application, okay? So let me run that, okay? Step over. That usually takes a moment, okay, to go through and launch origin. Okay, now I'm saying make origin visible. Okay, by default, when you launch application, origin is running in the background and not visible. So I'm going to click visible. Now you can see origin launched. Okay, it's an empty workspace, no project, nothing. Okay, next line is org.createPage. I'll show you in a moment where all the documentation is. Okay, and I want to emphasize we are here to help you. If you want to do this, if you want to write M files to communicate with Origin, we are here to help, and we can provide more and more examples in 2021. And this is where, again, I emphasize your feedback is important, so we can improve the things that you are really interested in and give you samples that you want to see. Okay. The create page has a specific syntax. The 2 stands for workbook, because in Origin, you can create a workbook, you can create a matrix, you can create a graph page, a layout page, a notes window. There are different indices. Okay, 2 is for worksheet. And then the next parameter is the name of the book. I'm calling it my data. And the third parameter is, do you want to use a template for making the book? Because as you know, everything in Origin is based on templates. The default workbook is based on a template called origin.otwu. So I'm saying make a new workbook called my data using the Origin template. Okay, let me run that. So you will see there is my book, my data. It has the default 2 columns. Okay, so far so good. Now the next statement says to the Origin application, put worksheet. So that's a method where to put to the book name my data. What to put? My array with my matrix with 3 columns, X, Y1, and Y2. Okay, so let me do step. You will see the data came in, right? So this is how you send data. You do your calculations, put it in a format that's suitable for sending. There are many ways to set data in Origin. Okay, you can set to an entire worksheet, you can set to an individual column, a single cell, etc. I'm just focusing on just a few because my objective here is to teach you the basics so that then you can go ahead and do the programming for more advanced things and we can help you. Okay. The next statement is save. I want to save this as a project. You can see here that it says untitled, correct? So let me go run this step. Then you will see Origin has saved it to C:\temp MATLAB Webinar, and it's called mydata.opju. Okay. The next statement, now that I'm all done with it, is origin.exit. Okay. Let's click that. So that will close Origin. Okay. I'm done. But in MATLAB, for the application to really go away from the background, you have to release all the handles. I have only one handle here called org, which was the application handle. So I'll release that, and then I can clear my variable G page. Actually, I didn't have a G page variable. Never mind. So that was a typo. I can clear my org variable. So I can say clear org. I apologize for that. I meant to say clear org. Okay. So that's clear. So let's go back to Origin. Let's just launch Origin and look at that project to make sure it was indeed saved. Okay. So I'm just launching Origin. Go to File, Open. Okay. And then if I look at my C:\test, there it is with the timestamp, right? So if I double click and open it, oh, actually, this is something sorry, that's not the one I saved. I apologize. File, that was another test. Sorry, I gave it a different name. So let me go to C C temp, okay, and MATLAB Webinar, and there is my data, okay. Let me open that, okay. So there it is, okay. So now let's take it a few steps further. What if you want to bring in the data and graph it? You can, of course, go ahead and do all the graphing by coding, okay? So let me show you where the documentation is. If you go to originlab.com/doc, okay, that's where all our documentation is, originlab.com/doc. You will see books for all the different areas. The thing that you need to see how to communicate to Origin from MATLAB is automation server, because that's the general framework. Any application, Excel, Visual Basic, MATLAB, LabVIEW, they can all talk to Origin where Origin acts as a server. That's what we just did. So here we can go and look at COM classes. All the classes are there. I use the application class, okay? It has many methods and properties. I use the create page, right? I made a page, right? And there are many methods and properties here. But in Origin, the nice thing is you can prepare things. You don't necessarily need to write code for everything, right? Because everything is in the GUI. You can make beautiful graphs and have everything ready. And you can then just use the project as a template and just push in the data. So that's what I want to show you next. So let me go open another project, my data with graph. So here what I have done is, it's the same structure, signal 1, signal 2, but I have made a double wide graph in Origin with some nice formatting, fonts, and all that. It's waiting and ready to receive data, okay? So let me close this project. Let me close Origin and go back to MATLAB and load an M file and show you how to push data into that project, okay? I hope I'm going slow enough, and I hope this is clear. I'm taking it really slow, okay? Okay, let me go open. And this time I'm going to open the file, new Origin session with graph, okay, open, okay. So let's again debug this. So you can see Origin launching and things actually happening, okay. So I'm going to put a breakpoint on the very first line, okay, let's run through. The first lines are again all the same. I'm just building data structure. Then now I'm again launching Origin, okay. And once it's launched, it'll take a moment. I'll make it visible. Nothing in there. But now I'm going to load a project. So there is a method for loading a project, org.load, and I can specify a project name, the project that I opened and showed you a moment ago. I load it. Okay. So there it is. The project is there, empty, waiting for data. So I have my data. I can put it to my worksheet called my data now. Okay, so let me go through that step. Okay, now if you go back to Origin and look, the data came in, the graph updated. Okay, simple data. I'm just using sine and cosine waves. Now I can save it. Okay, let me save it. Okay, okay, and now what if I want to export this graph? So there are a few lines of code here. One is to find the graph. My graph name is my graph. I'm finding it to give me a handle to the graph page object. So I step over, I get the graph page object. Then I do a graph page.execute. So if you go to Origin, and if you make a graph active, and if you go to the file menu, and if you go to export graphs, the export graph dialog comes up. I'm sure you have all seen this. Here I can choose my parameters like as PNG, where to put the file to. For example, I want to put it in the same location as a project folder. I can set various things, and if I click OK, it'll export. But I can click here and say generate script. Okay, then it will tell me exactly what to use as script to run to export. So it's basically saying export the graph, type PNG, path, project folder. So I took the string and put it in the execute method in MATLAB. Okay, so execute method lets you send command strings, basically laptop strings, to Origin from the client. In this case, the client is MATLAB, and it's executing specifically on that graph page. So it's saying take the graph page, and run the script. Okay, so let's run it. Step over. So this will, sorry, my mouse is misbehaving. So this will execute, and the command will execute and it will export the graph. Okay, it may take a moment to export, and then I do my origin exit. I clear all my handles, clear, and now I'm done. Okay, so now let me go back to origin, or go back to the folder. It went to the same place where the project is. So my project, let me see, where did I put it? So I can go look in the code. I put it in same place as the project folder. Okay. Working with MATLAB. Let's see. File, recent projects, MATLAB Webinar, my data. So that's the location. C:10 MATLAB Webinar. Okay. Okay. C:10 MATLAB Webinar. So this is where it exported. So you can see it exported a my graph, and you can see the timestamp of 241, right? So if I double click, it opens the PNG. So there it is. Okay, so I hope that's clear how to launch Origin, how to push data in. Of course, you may be triggering analysis, etc. In the project may already have analysis baked in. I'll show that as the next examples. Okay. Any questions so far? Because I'm going through quite a bit here, so many details. So, of course, you will be able to watch this webinar again, the recording again, and work through the data and the samples. So then you can play with your data and see how to automate this procedure of sending data. Okay. Let me move on to how to connect to an existing session. So here, what I have is I have taken some peak data and I have done an analysis on it already. As you know, you can do peak analysis in Origin very easily using the peak analyzer tool. So I took the peak analyzer tool, did an asymmetric least square baseline, fitted it with a number of peaks automatically found using a second derivative. All that is really cool stuff in Origin. If you want to do that in MATLAB, A, you will have to get a toolbox. B, you will have to write many, many lines of code. So the idea here is, because you are working with both products anyway, and you can do certain things in Origin that you can perform the analysis, I have already done it, and I'm using this project as a template, so I can change my data, okay, and then dump in new data and see what happens, okay. Let me go to MATLAB. Let me clean up the workspace, okay, clear workspace, okay. And I'm going to close all these M files, and I'm going to open a new M file, okay, and walk through that to show you how to send data to an existing Origin session. I'm not starting a new session. I'm talking to the Origin that's already running, okay. So let me go open, and let's see, C temp MATLAB Webinar and peak fit, okay. That's my M file. So let's look through this M file. Before I do that, I need to grab some data. I already have the data as a MAT file. Let me just open it, okay? Under data, I have a MAT file called Spectra. We will be giving this to you, so you will be able to see it too. The Spectra MAT file has two things. It has a sample ID. The sample ID is a string. It has 5 samples. These are like infrared absorbance spectra at different measurement parameters of 0 weight, 25 weight, 100 weight, 150 weight, 200 weight. I have it in a string array here, and I have the corresponding spectra in another array here, which is a 31 by 10 double. I have the X1, Y1, X2, Y2, X3, Y3, and so forth. Okay, let's see how to put that into Origin. Okay. So let me go here and let me add a breakpoint so we can walk through this slowly. Okay, unable to. see temp webinar column one ending statement. Oh, okay. I have a missing semicolon. Duh. Okay. Save. Okay. Let's go turn on breakpoints. Why is that? Line 8, column 1, at least one end is missing. The statement may begin here. Anybody have a clue? org equal to at server. Oh. Sorry. Let me load another file. I apologize. Okay, let me load another file. So let me go to, how do I get out of this now? Home, and I'm going to open, let me load a file that I had prepared for batch analysis anyway, and I'll show you that. Okay, C, temp, MATLAB Webinar, batch peak fit. Okay, I was playing with the other file. I apologize, I didn't really save it properly. So what I'm going to do in this is essentially the same. I'm going to connect to the existing origin session and loop through and send each XY data in, and let's see what happens. Okay, so I'll put this side by side. Let me go back to MATLAB. I have my data already loaded, my spectra and my ID, and I'll walk through here. Okay, so let me go here and put a breakpoint set. Okay, now let's run. Okay, so now please notice I'm using ActX servers origin.application SI. So there is a distinction. There are two methods of connecting to Origin. In fact, three. The basic difference is if I go to the classes, I'll show you. The application will start a new session. Application COM-SI and application SI will connect to an existing session if there is one. Okay, so if Origin is already running, it will connect to the running version of Origin, which is what we want. Okay, so let me step over that. Okay, so no new Origin launches, it connected. Now I'm trying to find the peak data worksheet. Okay, let me go back to MATLAB and then connect to the peak data worksheet. I'm also going to grab the graph layer, name peak report, and get the graph page, reference to the page. Now I'm going to loop over the 5 spectra. Okay, and this is just MATLAB stuff. I'm looping over, I'm building my X, I'm building my Y. Okay, then I'm putting them together into a 2-column array. Then I'm going to push that. I'm going to take the sample ID, okay, and set that to the sheet name. You see right now it's saying sheet 1. So when I do that, it will set that to 0 weight, you see. So I took the sample ID and put there. So I have a reference. And then I'm going to put the worksheet data in there. Now what happens in Origin is that when the worksheet data goes in, it will automatically update, okay, the operation. But there is a command called org.run. You can run that to ensure that everything is updated. Okay, so now if you go back here, you will see the operation has run. This is new data. The fit has updated on this new data. Okay, then I have a few more lines. I'm taking the graph page and I'm exporting it as a PDF file. Okay, done. Loop back, go to the next one. Okay, loop over, grab the next data. You see the data changed. And I do the run and just loop over. Okay, I can simply hit continue, I guess, to do all of them. Okay, so now if I go look at my folder here, you will see that I am getting new PDF files. Okay, the process is still running. So you see now I have 5 PDF files. If I double click on one of them, for example, that's my PDF of the report for 0 weight. Okay. And I can go double click on another. Okay, so now you get the idea that you can even loop through data and send it all and use Origin project as a template for doing all of your analysis. So you saved a whole lot of lines of coding, right? By just building the template in Origin, setting up the project. Of course, a project, you can use a project template or it can simply be a book. how to build the template, there are many videos on it, many tutorials on it, and we are here to help as well. Okay, you can do this with linear regression, with nonlinear fit, peak analysis, and so forth. Okay, many options. So hope that was illustrative, that now you know how to connect to Origin as a server, using MATLAB as a client application and pushing data in. Okay, now let's take a moment and do some polling, because we want your feedback and it's very critical for us. So my colleague Zheng Shao is going to run the poll. Zheng, you can go ahead. Please take a few moments to answer. Okay, while you are answering, I'll prepare for the 2021. So I'm just going to close 2020 and launch 2021. Okay, please continue answering the poll. I'm just going to talk a little bit about 2021 and what we are really looking for from you. So as you know, you can see version history for Origin on our web page. So let me go to the support area of our web page, and if I go to Help Center, there is a link to Origin software release history. And you may already be aware, we are releasing 2 versions of Origin every year. One end of April and one roughly end of October, okay? The dates vary a bit. As I mentioned earlier, the latest is Origin 2020B, which was released 2020 April, okay? And we are now looking at Origin 2021, which will be released in October of this year. So what we are looking for in 2021 is, of course, we need feedback from you. We are also looking for beta testers. So if you liked what you saw today, you work with MATLAB and Origin often, and there are areas that should be improved in this context, give us your comments and please help us beta test. The beta testing doesn't put a heavy load on you. You just need to focus on just the feature that you like. We will give you a license for the beta. If you already have the latest version, then the beta will just use that license itself. It will not take away from anything that you have, okay? And you just give us feedback. We have a beta forum, or you can email us. So if you are interested in beta testing, please email betatest@originlab.com or put in the comment in WebEx you are interested, and we will look at who said they're interested and contact you, okay? So we would really appreciate, we wouldn't ask you to do beta testing of every feature. We only want you to focus on the features that you are really interested in this case, MATLAB and perhaps Python, if you have some overlap with MATLAB and Python, okay? So let me show you one nice improvement we are doing with Python in Origin, okay? So what we have done is, in Origin is, we have this concept called embedded Python. So when Origin is installed, Python is already installed along with Origin. So you don't even need to go looking for Python elsewhere, okay? The latest version of Python is included. Every time we have a new release, we update that. So in version 2020B, it was version 3.8 of Python that was included. What that allows us to do is that we can then tap into Python and use Python packages to do additional analysis that Origin currently cannot do. So one such example that I want to show here is a Lomskargel periodogram. So here, if I have data that is not uniform, okay, how do I do the Lomskargel periodogram with that? Okay, so here's my periodogram sheet. Okay, here are some explanation, and let me see what to do with the in MATLAB. So first of all, let me explain here what this project is. In this project, if I go to Code Builder, which is a coding environment for Origin, you will see that the project folder, okay, and underneath the project folder, I have a Python file already attached to this project. And this is the Python file that will do the computation of the periodogram. Okay, so it's self-contained, similar to how you can have operations and graphs and everything in a project. You can also have code files. So in this case, I have a Python code file. So in 2021, we are introducing a new package for Origin called Origin Pro. It'll be auto-installed. You don't need to go get it from anywhere. It'll be part of the embedded Python. And then you can use other packages. In this case, I'm using NumPy, I'm using SciPy, and from SciPy, I'm using the Signal library, and I'm using Lomskargel. Okay, and again, this is just Python code. I'm finding the data, doing the periodogram, putting it back into the worksheet. Okay, so that's what is in the project. So now, obviously, I can use MATLAB and push data into here. So now it's MATLAB pushing data into Origin, and Origin using Python to do some computation. The benefit there is you don't need to go buy an expensive toolbox. If there is some analysis that you want to run and Python has it, Origin already has the embedded Python, you can, of course, just stay in Origin and with your Origin data called Python. We have several examples of that coming up in 2021. But you can also push the data directly from MATLAB into the worksheet, right? So let me go to MATLAB. Okay, and I'm going to bring in a mat file. Okay, so I'm just going to open the mat file, temp data. Where is it? Non-uniform signal. Okay, so that's my data. It's a 40x2 table. Okay, so you'll notice here the timestamp. It's non-uniform. So you cannot do an FFT to get a periodogram because it's not uniformly spaced in X. But you can use the Lomskargel periodogram. So let's see what the code is. Okay, so okay, I can actually use these to load. Okay, let me just follow the code here from this. Okay, into MATLAB. So let me go to MATLAB, and I'm going to clear. Okay, I'm going to clear the workspace just to make it clear. We have only the variable we really need. So I'm going to go load using the MATLAB load command and load this file. Okay, signal.mat, non-uniform signal.mat, Control C, go to MATLAB, run that from the command window. Okay, so that loads the signal. Then I'm going to take the signal and convert it into a form that's suitable for putting into the Origin worksheet. Okay, Control V, converted it, signal XY. Now it's a 40x2 double instead of a 1x1 structure. Okay, so now I can go Origin Act Server SI, right? SI is for connecting to the already running Origin, and in my case 2021 is running. So I go run it, it'll connect, successful. Then I can come here and say, take that signal XY and put it into the worksheet called periodogram. So here is my periodogram worksheet. Okay, and I go to MATLAB and I run it, and now the data came in. That calls Python in turn, the embedded Python and the Python file that I have, which is loading NumPy, SciPy, and doing the computation. The first time you load, it takes a couple of minutes to go through, and there is my periodogram. So the idea here, what I'm trying to convey is, there is a lot you can do in Origin with free Python packages using the embedded Python for doing analysis that Origin and Origin Pro do not have, and you may not have in MATLAB either. So you can use MATLAB with Origin and with the embedded Python to further enhance your analysis capabilities. So I hope that message is clear. And just to show you some more examples. Now, I'm not going to use MATLAB. I'm just going to load some examples here from 2021. So if I go open, we have under our samples folder, let me navigate to the samples folder. Samples folder. Let me go to Python. Okay. We have several examples we are shipping here. Let me just show you, let's say, Bayesian linear regression. Okay. So this sample opens, and many of the samples require packages to be installed. There are ways to automatically install packages in Origin. We make it very easy for you in 2021. So let me just click this button. It says the following packages are required to run this code. Scikit-learn is required. So I just click OK, and then a dialog launches. It's installing scikit-learn in the background. So the needed packages can be included as buttons. These are simple buttons with simple script commands. So you can create a tool, a project as a tool in Origin, and then simply load that and run the Python code. Okay. So it's still running. It's collecting NumPy, SciPy. It'll do all the dependent packages, just the typical pip install. If you look at a package, it'll do all the dependents by itself. NumPy, SciPy, there are many that are being installed right now. Okay. So we're still waiting for the installation to finish. We hope this is really a game changer. It really lets you expand by yourself the analysis capabilities in Origin if you are into Python coding and if you're familiar with Python packages. Okay. And this is where we need your help to do some beta testing. We would really appreciate it if you can help with the beta testing. Some of these packages take a while to install. In the meantime, do you have any questions? Thank you all for staying through the webinar. It's over an hour. I appreciate your patience. There was a lot that I wanted to cover, and I wanted to go really slow. So here it's saying Python packages were installed. Do you want to restart Origin now? You can say yes. Oh, okay, because that's because I connected from MATLAB, and MATLAB is still holding on to it. So I can come here and say org.exit. Okay, to close. Okay, so there it goes. So let me launch Origin again so that it's the packages have already been installed, the scikit-learn package. Okay, so let me go to 2021 and load that project again. We recommend that you restart Origin after installing a package. That's safer, although may not be always necessary. So now I have it all ready. I can look at the code. There is a show code button here that simply opens the code builder, and it will show you the file here. It's using NumPy, Pandas, of course, Origin Pro package, and scikit-learn. I can simply click F5 to run. Let me move this to the side, and I'll just simply click F5. That will run the code, and that will then use scikit-learn to do the Bayesian regression in this case. Okay, and you can see the graph nicely updated. I have a worksheet here with the results. It put in all the coefficients, the scores, the independent X and the predicted value, and also the standard deviation. I took that and made a nice graph where I have used the error bars. Instead of error bars, I've used a nice shaded area. That's where the nice graphing Origin come in. You don't need to write a whole bunch of lines of code just to make a beautiful graph. You just make the graph and change the data. Okay. So there are many such examples, and if you sign up for beta, you can play with them and give us feedback. And I think at this point, I'll stop this webinar. Again, really appreciate all of you attending this webinar. The recording will be available next week sometime. Please check back. You may also get an email. I think you will get an email when the recording is ready and the data is ready. And again, there are more webinars. There's another one coming up at 4 today. On our website, you can go to support and go to training webinars and then register there. Okay. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day.